Okay, we are up to Mishlei Chaf Vav. Okay, Mizare Rashaim. Hold on, just 1 second here. Like Mizare Rashaim Melech Chacham V'Yashiv Alehem Ofan. Anyone want to take a stab at the initial translation?
The seed of Rashaim.
Mizare with a hey, not with an ayin. This is like in Malachos of Shabbos is Zoreh.
I see.
Anyone remember their Malachos? Winnowing, right? Oh. So Mizar. So it means if you look at מצודת ציון, which I can just show you here like that. Mizar is Inyan Pizor, scattering. Okay. So Mizare Rashaim Melech Chacham, and I think you have to flip it, meaning Mizare is singular, right? So it's not saying that the Rashaim scatter; it's saying that the Melech Chacham scatters Rashaim. I just gave it away. A wise king scatters the wicked. Okay, hold on just 1 second here. And V'Yashiv Alehem Ofan. That's a weird phrase. Ofan is a galgal, which is a wheel. Like Ofanim and Chayos HaKodesh, the wheel angels. Ofnaim are bicycles, right?
It's a roll.
It comes from the word round. So that's why Gilgul means, a cyclical thing. Legalgel is to roll. Yeah.
Something with sitting?
V'Yashiv. So I think it looks like that, right? But I think this actually comes from shuv, like to return or to turn back. So let's go with, anyone want to take a stab? Yeah, just how to translate it. Yeah.
Who's the Alechem?
The Rashaim. I would say, and turns the wheel back upon them. That's how I would say it.
All right.
Whatever that means. Okay. So let's do, so we did the Metzudas Tion. Let's do Sadigon. Sadigon says, Hamelech HaChacham Mefazer Es Rashaim Umesev Alehem Es Ofan. I think that is virtually the same. I don't know what he's changing even. I guess Mesav, yeah. Mesav, he's Yashiv is to return. Mesav is to turn back. Very subtle, which is how I translated it. So I don't know what Sadigon is getting at by translating that one word differently.
What's the difference?
I don't even know. Well, Shuv, I guess, what would you say the difference is between return and turn back?
Well,
return implies that there was once something there.
Yeah. Return, I think, is a stronger thing to imply that it's going back to a state it was already in or something like that. Mesav is just to turn, like you could turn the car. Turning the car is different than returning the car, So he's just changing it from return to turn. Okay, so I'm just going to note that here. I don't even need to note it. I'm just going to highlight it just so we're aware of it. Okay, and then Targum says Mavadar l'Rashia Malka Hakima Umhapech Alehon Gilgala. So he says Mahapech is like hifok, like hefech, to reverse. So that it's like the word Yashev is ambiguous, and Sadigon takes one side and Targum takes the other side. Yeah.
I think Mahavir could mean to turn.
Say again?
I think Mahavir could mean to turn.
Really?
Yeah, like when it's and Shmos was talking with the Matos.
Yeah.
Turning water into dung. I think.
Like to transform?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So let's say transform, or you could also use mahapech is to overturn. Okay, right? Like kamapecha Sodom v'Amorah.
So it's used in perm a lot.
Yeah, right. So that's the one that I was thinking at first, which is the reverse. Put that at the front because that's the main meaning. So mahapech. Okay, so then we have our scroll, which I can actually display now. A wise king scatters the wicked, and Isaac, I should tell you, you're on camera now. We got a screen finally. So don't
no, you're looking great.
Yeah. So basically, if you make faces when someone says something dumb, then everyone will know that you're
I have a portable webcam that
Good.
can show it to them.
Yeah, the only thing is it would only work if it can plug into a USB-C.
Yeah, I have a. Oh yes,
because I only have one USB
so
port.
I have a solution. I have an adapter to the USB-C, which has multiple ports.
That would be a good solution. Okay, nice. All right, good. All right, so our scroll says a wise king scatters the wicked and turns the wheel and puts in measure for measure. I bet that's from Rashi or Metzudas David. Okay, our scroll does that upon them. So the translation is virtually the same, except for the measure for measure part. Living Nach says a wise king winnows out, so they do use the Shabbos term, winnows out the wicked and turns the wheel back upon them. And Alter says a wise king sifts out the wicked and turns the wheel over them. And I decided, by the way, I always use Alter just to go over basic facts. Again, Alter is a modern translator, and he I just liked using him because he has interesting translations. But I realized a lot of the goodness of his translation comes in his explanatory footnotes. So from now on, I'm going to try to include the footnotes. Let's see what he says. Oh yeah, for example, like this: the wheel. The probable reference is to the wheels of a chariot with which a triumphant king would crush the defeated enemy. Now, I would not have known that but it's a question like, what wheels are they talking about in Shlomo Melech's time? Makes sense. The only really real vehicles that would be associated with a king are chariots. So like that's the type of like little tidbit that that's good. So I'm gonna actually put chariot.
How does he know that?
So he doesn't know for sure because he's academic. So he's doing this based on his knowledge of philology and history and anthropology. So it's speculative, treat it with a grain of salt, but we'll treat it with a grain of salt. Yeah. Yeah.
Why can't this wheel be more figurative in the sense that like turns it back around?
So it does seem to be used figuratively in the pasuk, but the question is, what's the like? In other words, there is a nimshal, but he's identifying what the mashal is. Like, what wheel in the metaphor are we talking about?
Why can't it be more of an abstract wheel?
I don't know if abstract wheels exist.
In the sense that
For us they do,
Likely.
right? Yeah, I guess. Sorry, for us they do, but I'm saying like back then, I honestly don't know when wheels made it into like the kingdom of Israel, like So like in other words, like there's certain things that we take as abstractions that were like, let's say like I this is always the one that I think of. You really hit it out of the ballpark. What did people say before baseball? But like, so there had to have been a time where hitting out of the ballpark was used.
Chicken's head out of the ballpark.
Sure.
Chicken.
Yeah, they did play with the chicken's head. Yeah. But I'm never gonna be able to shake that image from this idiom now. But in other words, there's a time where like it was only used literally, and then it broadened into figurative usage, and then certain things become complete abstractions, which is what you're suggesting, like wheel. And I just don't know if I ignorance about whether that could have happened at this time. So I want to take it as like referring to like a wheel that they're familiar with, and then we'll abstract it as we need. Okay, so now let us list the questions here. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just move this down over here so we can have this here. And then, I always forget to do this. Save.
Could you repeat the translation that we are?
Yeah. This. A wise king scatters the wicked and turns the wheel back upon him. Let me make it bigger. Make it bigger. Yeah, we're going to go with that for now. Okay, so questions and problems. Yeah, Jacob.
Why is he scattering?
Yeah, why? Okay, why does he scatter them? Do you have more lurking behind that question than just why? Like, no, okay. I like scattering them as opposed to something else, or
What does it accomplish?
Why is it Scotland?
okay. Oh, so that's another question. Okay, which is, see, I felt there's something there, right? Why is the king's chachma highlighted in this action? Isaac, do you have something?
I'm saying, what does it accomplish?
What does it accomplish? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that
What
was
does this accomplish? Why are you so quiet? You're usually louder than that.
Why?
My volume is at full volume. I don't know.
Why is it? If we just say like puts the wheel upon them, why is there an emphasis on turning back?
Okay. Yeah.
Or
So
a return or whatever.
right. So let's just ask this as the general question here first, which is, what is the metaphor of turning the wheel back upon them? Right. So, and we'll break that down to its questions. What is the wheel? What does turning back mean? For example, or namely, is it return, turn, reverse, and then the way you said it was why, how do you ask the question? Do you remember? Okay. Why turn, why turn back?
Like, why don't you could just say like correct or something.
Yeah,
however you want.
instead of something else. Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah.
Okay, is the idea of scattering them synonymous with turning the wheel back upon them? Or
Okay, that's a good question. So what is the relationship between scattering and turning the wheel back? back. And I'm asking it in this way of, so synonymous could be one option. Sequential could be another option. Unrelated, like could just be these are two things that the king does, not necessarily to the same Rishayim. Yeah, Yaakov?
I don't know the best way to ask. Do you have to be a melech to do this?
Okay, good. So,
Unless it's a melech,
yeah, is this limited to a melech chacham, or is that just an example? And just rule of thumb, not rule of thumb in general, just what I found in Mishlei is usually when it talks about king, any pasuk about a king can also be used for anyone who is the leader of any sort of like system, So we always take it as king literally first, and then we expand it as needed. And bearing in mind also that the king had different roles as well. For example, kings were involved in judgment. Kings were involved in giving laws. So it could be that also. Yeah, Sean?
What does it mean to scatter?
Yeah, good. That's really come here first. What does scatter mean in this context? Yeah, scatter / winnow. And I'm keeping winnow here because it is a weird term. Metzudas ציון had said pizur, like lefazer is the normal way to talk about scattering. Mizare is an act that involves scattering, but mizare really means to winnow, right? And just, do you all know what winnowing is?
I could use
Okay, so yeah, review. So when you take the wheat, you thresh it, which is you beat it on the ground, and that knocks the grain kernels out of the chaff, which is the inedible plant matter. And then now you've got a problem because you've got a whole pile of chaff and grain. So how do you get the chaff out of the grain? So you shovel it and you throw it into the air when it's windy, and the wind blows the chaff away, and then the grain falls down again. So it's a very specific metaphor, to winnow.
Who gave that? Who said winnow? Because it's
Well, winnow is just the word.
No, I'm
That's
saying which,
no, that I'm saying that's just the literal translation of the word. Yeah. So in fact, I actually want to modify this winnows, and Metzudas ציון is the one who translated it as scatter.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So in other words, and if you just think about it, like if I told you, could you please scatter some Rishaim, what would you imagine? You would imagine like social distancing them, or something like that. Whereas if you winnow out the Rishaim, is a completely different implication. Like I want you to make it so that they're blown away and like the good stuff remains. So yeah. So that's a primary question. Yeah, David?
Like what, at least in the first of the pasuk, like what's the chidush there? Like I think that's pretty simple, that you're not going to want to have like a community of Christians.
Okay, so this is funny, right? So this is the alternative question. So Yaakov wanted to know why he scatters them, and David's saying, or it's obvious. What's the chiddush, right? It's always funny how this happens sometimes, is that certain things, the one person thinks it's obvious, the other person thinks, like, I don't see any chiddush in it. It doesn't need to be said at all, Yeah, Yaakov.
who's the audience?
Okay, who is the audience? Who is the audience? And I think here we have some candidates for who the audience is. Yeah, the king, the wise. You could say it's the Rishayim, but we don't typically talk to Rishayim. So we've discovered a thing in Mishlei chapter 10, which is sometimes Mishlei talks to people who are on their way to becoming Rishayim. Like if you're not quite there, if you're there, you're not going to listen to the pasuk.
Doesn't it not talk to Ksilim also?
It doesn't talk to Ksilim or Leitim either, but people who are, let's say, like a youth who is on the one hand listening to Shlomo HaMelech, but on the other hand is being tempted by gangs. Could be there, or could be on the way. People who are potential Rishayim. Someone else. Yeah.
Is Ophan a standard word for wheel, or is it unique?
I think it's standard. In fact, the word that Metzudas ציון used to translate it of galgal, I've never seen that to mean wheel, like cycle. Yeah, cycle, right? Yeah, So like I've never seen anyone talk about a vehicle, like a chariot or a wagon, and say the galim, like in Tanakh Hebrew. Although you don't see wheel in general, Yeah. In fact, we could do a let's answer our question here, right? So if you go to Al Torah, let's look up our pasuk.
The Alator, does it give you the short of the word?
It does. It's good. It gives you everything you need. I'll show you. So let's make it bigger. Oh, that's too big. All right. So if you look here, again, just quick crash course on how to use Alatorah's dictionary is you click on Ophan and it'll take you to the dictionary. So wheel, and these are all the places where it's used. Okay. Most of them are in looks like Yechezkel. No, that's not easy. Whatever. You could look at where it shows up in Tanakh. So once in Shemos, 6 in Malachim. Oh, I was right. Most of them are in Yechezkel. 25 times in Yechezkel, 1 in Nahum, and only once in Mishlei. Okay, so what that tells us is that this is a good example of this. Okay, Yechezkel was the prophet for the northern kingdom. Okay, when it was about to be destroyed, and he was way after Shlomo HaMelech. You know, so this is like supports my theory that like the fact that Shlomo HaMelech only used wheels once. You know, like it's possible that wheels already had a different meaning by a couple hundred years later in Yechezkel's time. You know. And then you could also, what did you ask about the shorish thing?
I asked about if you could see the short.
So in the dictionary, it displays the oh, it's interesting. It doesn't even have a shorish. Yeah. Oops, sorry. Yeah, hold on. Oops.
You will find it, or you just open.
Wait, hold on. I'm just. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. Do you say Ophanim or Ophan? Oh, you can filter it. So like, for example, this one, oh, I just clicked on Ophan. I didn't realize I was clicked. Yeah, so for example, oh, if you're in, so right now I'm in Surah form.
Right.
So I don't know why I'm doing this. Yeah, so if you do it like this, Kol Hatsuros, it'll give you all the psukim, but you could limit it to just Ophan with a patach, or I can include the kamatz, or I can have Ofanehem, you know,
Cool.
etc. Yeah, very useful. Okay, anyway, back to our learning. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? Or are we good for now? All right. So
What does what does the foolish king do?
Oh yeah. What's the other side of the pasuk? Yeah. So what is the other side of the pasuk? Meaning what? So most psukim in Mishlei will spell out this is what the wise person does, this is what the foolish person does. But if you only are given one, you kind of have to construct the other. So like we have to infer what the other side is. So what would a foolish king do and why? Like what is his mistake? Yeah, the trick though is that there are different opposites. So for example, the example Rai Moskowitz always used to give is what's the opposite of hot? What's the opposite of hot? Cold. Okay, but in certain contexts, the opposite of hot is room temperature. You know, depends on what the subject is, right? Like if you're talking about, you know, like or like normal temperature, right? If you're talking about fevers and we want to say we got to like reverse this fever, we don't mean that you get to like freezing. You know, we mean that you just get back to baseline. You know, so you're right is that it's just the opposite, but sometimes depending on how you define the topic, you get different opposites. Yeah. For example, in here, you could say that the foolish king would not scatter the Rishayim, would not winnow the Rishayim, right? That's one possibility. But what would be an even more foolish decision that could also be characterized as an opposite? Okay, gathering them in, that could be one, or scattering the tzaddikim, you know, and we've seen people do this. We've seen leaders in history who basically and that was, I'm just thinking about this because of, that's what happened to Shlomo's son, is Rechavam, is he had all of his father's advisors. And when Rechavam became king, he kicked out all of his father's advisors and then like made all of his like buddies his advisors, you know, so like it was, and that ended up destroying the kingdom, you know, so yeah. Cool. Maybe if you were there, you would have done the same thing. Well, yeah.
Yeah, I have Shlomo to support me.
And he didn't. Rechavam ben Shlomo didn't have Shlomo to support him. Yeah, well, I mean, look, having Shlomo Melech as a father is also got to be intimidating. But yeah. Okay, so let's figure this out now. So I think these are our questions. So let us think about them here. Okay, so where do we start?
It's kind of clear what not having Rishon together does. Saying?
Yeah.
Which would be like them plotting together on like some.
Okay, so you and David are taking the Mitzudas ציון of scattering them as opposed to them being together. Right. You're not taking the winnowing thing.
Right, but I feel like also even there it applies.
Well, winnowing does imply that they are being scattered, but the essence of winnowing is you're removing them from the good.
like removing the bad ways.
Yeah, you're moving bad ways. And again, just halakhically here, since the only time that we ever talk about winnowing these days is in Shabbos, borer and selecting, zoreh, winnowing, and maraked, sifting are all the same malacha, which is taking the bad out of the good. So that's why I'm just, you're totally entitled to follow them to a ציון. I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. So if you say scattering, then it's obvious why Rishayim together is bad, because why would you say? Why is it bad if they're together?
They can plot to do something much bigger than
Yeah.
just one guy.
Right. Strength in numbers.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Oren?
mean, an interesting, I guess, thing about winnowing though is that you're subjecting both the good and the bad to some external pressure.
Yeah.
As a means to remove the bad. So within the parable or whatever.
Yeah.
That means you're taking both the tzaddikim and the Rishayim, you're doing something to them both to remove the Rishayim.
Right. That is interesting. So the process is going to look different with a different mashalim, meaning when you scatter with, pizur, like in the Mitzvah Tion, the king does that act directly on the Rishayim, but winnowing might involve some process that's done to the whole mixture, which results in the Rishayim being kicked out. Yeah, Yaakov?
Instead of Aaron, the Havamina might have been that if you're like spreading your shine, then like sowing seeds all over the kingdom.
Right. That's another good point.
You said it would be worse. Because they're all
You might
over.
Right.
all over.
Yeah.
You might-
What do you call it? Who makes that accusation in Tanakh that we're familiar with, that we read every year, about saying that
Paro?
because do you say Paro?
Yeah.
I don't think so, unless there's something I'm not thinking.
He wanted to make the Jews slaves because when the enemy nations come, the Jews will side with them
Right.
and then wage war against them.
But he doesn't scatter them though, right? They're all in place. Yeah. Who says that because the Jews are scattered throughout the entire kingdom, then that's going to be really bad? Haman, right? So that was the accusation he made, and that's the accusation that anti-Semites make, is like, it's not that no one's worried about all the Jews gathered in one place to do evil. It's that they're scattered and like they've what's the word I'm looking for? Infiltrated. Yeah, they've infiltrated all these various pockets of society. Yeah. So that's actually a very good Havamina, right?
Right, yeah.
Was Haman right?
Yeah, in that respect.
I mean, he.
Like, is it?
Is it
I
better
mean,
to
if it's
have
bad
that
for them, it's good for us. Like,
It's interesting because he, the other thing he says is they don't keep the king's laws, and it's true that if you have a bunch of people scattered throughout the kingdom who don't keep the king's laws, then that could be bad. But yeah, I don't know.
I
If
don't
it's
think
good,
we're interested in like overthrowing Persia.
right? Yeah.
You're
So, yeah.
not understanding my question.
I guess not.
I guess I'm not either.
Yeah.
No, I get
Yeah.
it. Are you saying that meaning it's better for the Jews to be spread out in terms of the.
In terms of like yadas.
I feel like it's a good question, but also off topic.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it is. Okay, fine. Okay, yeah. Okay, so
I can ask another question on that.
Yeah.
Where are we scattering them to?
that's another good question, right?
Like, is it?
Yeah.
It's fine. Why wouldn't we exile them?
Yeah.
You
Okay,
know?
yeah. So I'm just gonna break this down because we really hold on a second. What is the method? Okay, and then if we're scattering them, where are we scattering them to? And then if we're winnowing them, then what? I guess this is a question no matter what, right? Where are they going? It doesn't really matter whether you're scattering or winnowing,
Yeah.
right? Where do the Rishayim go when we winnow or scatter them?
I feel like if you're winnowing them, you don't really care where they go.
But isn't that bad for like similar reasons to Yaakov?
Well, that's a holiday, but no, apparently it's not.
But I don't know, like if you said, for example, let's take criminals and prison, if you said, oh, we're just going to take the murderers in society and we're just going to scatter them. I don't care where they go. Like, it's like, you do have to worry about it, at least to like address it, Yeah.
Scatter them from each other.
Right. So that's the interesting thing, which is I feel like even if you say that the emphasis is on breaking them up, you still have to wonder, well, where are they now and what are they capable of now? Meaning, even if they're not as capable of the bad thing as they would be when they were together, what's the new situation you've created? Well, I'll just add that here, right? What is the new situation you've created, and how is that better than the prior situation?
Well, with winnowing, their movement is dependent on something else, meaning
Yeah.
they're not in control.
Right. Yeah. Meaning the wind blows them away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not their movement, right?
Yeah.
They're like movement, kind of like equating that with action.
Yeah.
Right, it seems to be not from them, but it's from the next.
Right. So it's an interesting thing with winnowing. Now that you pointed out, winnowing is a two-step process because you have to be the one to throw everything up into the wind, and then the wind takes them away. Right. By the way, just another thing also that I was reminded of this because of the comment I made about Yechezkel, about this appearing many times in Yechezkel and how the meaning might have changed. Anyone know about the mushel of Rishaim as chaff? Chaff is the stuff from the that gets blown away in the wind. Yeah. So if you were in Tehillim last year, the opening parak of Tehillim says this. So it's talking about the tzaddik. Oops, sorry. It's talking about the whatever. We'll do it this way. Tzaddik is So it says so it compares the tzaddik or the person who's learning Torah all the time to a tree. It says it's like a tree planted on streams of water. Asher pirio yitain beito. Sorry, I'm not sharing this for Isaac. Or Isaac, whatever, you know this. Pirio yitain beito. He was in this year. So the tzaddik is like a tree planted on streams of water that gives fruit in its time, and its leaf will not wither. And everything that he does, he'll succeed. Lochein harashayim im kamot asher tidfenu haruach. The Rishaim are like motes, which is chaff, I think. Chaff, yeah. Asher tidfenu haruach, that the wind will just blow it away. So that's like acknowledging that the wind is the thing that is blowing them away, but the king is the one who has to like create the situation where the wind can act on it. Because if it's in the pile, then it's not going to get affected by the wind.
Right, so he's essentially the cause.
He is one of the causes. It's a combo cause, right? Because the king throws it up in the air and then the wind blows it away. That's what I meant by the by the fact that there are two. Yeah.
Second little question.
Yeah.
If winnowing, then what is the wind?
Yes. Okay. Good. So if mizare equals winnowing, what is the wind in the mashal? Yeah.
Also, can you just explain the difference between winnowing and scattering? Not like the
Yeah.
process. but-
Scattering means taking things that are together and moving them apart. Winnowing means taking a mixture of good and bad and letting something else remove the bad. So it's really a question of, are you, again, together versus apart versus mixed and separate?
So I have a case where it could be both
Okay.
at the same time. Meaning the case could be where you have majority of like a settlement or like a city is Rishaim, but you also have Tzaddikim, or just normal people there.
Right.
So in that situation, the Rishaim are together, but
Right.
they're large enough to start forming their own society.
Right. The only problem that you're going to have for that is, I think if you're talking about a system in which the Rishaim are dominant, then I don't know if this is going to work. I feel like this is kind of built on the premise that the Rishaim are fewer than the normal populace. Like if you're talking about like a Sodom, well, because what is the king going to, let's say king of Sodom and Amorah, what is he going to do? Kick out all the people in the city? I feel like then you need other solutions.
No,
then you take the tzaddikim out,
No, you're just scattering them out. You're scattering the
To other, like, to
Rishaim.
other nations?
Yes, no, to other cities, other settlements.
Can that work? Like,
Why
can you?
not? I'm a king. I can do whatever the hell I want.
I don't think you can. No, I don't think you can.
Destroy your entire
Destroy your whole country.
What? How are you destroying the whole?
Because
country?
if you have
whole country.
80% Rishaim, 80% Rishaim, and 20% normal
No,
people,
just that one town. It's not the entire country. It's just
well, that's what I'm saying. Is okay, fine. So if you have, you mean exile the city? Like, yeah, I feel like this is more complicated. Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
why?
because
Why do you feel that?
the normal case is going to be where the king has certain Rishaim in his thing, not where he has like a whole positing that it's a whole city full of Rishaim. I just don't see where
Yeah,
we're
but
getting.
okay, let's say it's a few Rishaim in a city.
Yeah.
So then they're already scattered. I mean,
Not necessarily. What if they're all in the court?
They're in the court.
Yeah. What if they're all in the army, or they're all like in the mercantile caste, or they're all the Jews. Like there's lots of cases like this.
I'm not following.
That's how Rishaim overthrow kings. All throughout history is that you have a group of Rishaim who are all, or people who are anti-king, who are gathering together and plotting to overthrow the king. Usually it's the army. Usually it's the military that they stage a coup.
Right.
or it is the king's advisors that they all like all the second in command people, you know, or it's a family, or it's, you know, there's lots of cases like this. But I just, you know, again, that's like the common case, saying that there's like a, I don't know, like a whole city and like he can just exile the city. I think that's way too particular, you know.
Okay, fine. Let's forget about that for a second.
Yeah.
And I just want to talk about like just like the abstract idea of
Yeah.
how if you have a city or a town or a settlement, whatever, in your country that's getting filled with Rishon,
Yeah.
either you destroy that entire city,
Yeah.
or just I guess that would be the best solution, right?
I guess. Yeah.
Just destroy it.
Could be. Yeah. But that's not what this says, right?
No, I'm just
Oh,
saying
yeah.
just
For the
alternative.
Havamina. Yeah.
Because my approach, was going to be, well, scattering or winnowing would imply that you have like a lot of Rishon together in one place.
Right.
When are you going to have that in a normal city? Like it has to be enough. It has
Just
to be
gave like 5 cases.
Where you have like a few in a queue and
Yeah,
I'm saying like
Nixon, take Nixon, right? So Nixon was corrupt, and he had a bunch of people at the top of the chain in the White House that were also engaged in the same corruption. They're all there, you know. So,
but Nixon himself was a
so then take a case where you got a king who's a chacham and he's got a bunch of corrupt people there, you know, like so scatter them, you know, or like, you know, like there's lots of cases like this.
We don't see this though in Tanakh that much, do we? Like we don't see this happening.
If you look at the kings who got killed by their armies, you know, by their generals, then you do see that. Yeah.
So
Rishon take over, like,
why is it
Yeah.
better for Shiloh case also?
I can try to remember by looking at my Malachim chart.
You see Shlomo did like send off certain like adversaries.
I'll get back to you on that. What was it?
We see that Shlomo did like send off certain adversaries.
Yes, right. Yeah, and actually, in fact, the when Shlomo sinned with his wives, Hashem had been holding back certain groups of adversaries, and then he says, "I'm going to let them free now," and then they went and they created problems. Yeah.
No, but I'm saying in terms of the scattering or the winnowing.
Oh, the solution that he's talking about. Have we seen that? If not, that's a good question. That I don't know of. Yeah. Yeah, that you know who likes saying stuff like that? Sadikon does. Most of Sadikon's actual commentary, not the translation, is he just says it's like from Tanakh, and he just tells you in Tanakh as if we're expert in Tanakh. So when we do the meforshim, we can see if he gives any examples. We do okay. I mean, so we've been talking about the scattering. Yeah.
So, granted, this isn't true in every case of kings, but
Yeah.
If the king is seeing the Rishayim as like a real threat, why would he scatter them instead of executing them?
Right. Yeah, that was a big. That's a big question. I think. Did we list that, or do we forget to list that?
I mean, grace with the finish.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. I guess we didn't ask it explicitly though, right? Which is, didn't we say instead of doing something else?
Where are they going?
Oh, I turned back instead of something else.
What,
Yeah. Hold on a second. Yeah. Why does he scatter them? What is this? Why does he scatter them? What does this accomplish? Why not do something better? Execute, exile. I don't know, like imprison. Yeah.
This might just be tagging on to the where are you going question.
Yeah.
But is it that he's like exiling them out of the kingdom, or they're still within the kingdom?
Yeah, I think that'll be included in the where is he scattering them to the iron?
yeah, so could it be possible that, I mean, by scattering them out, that turns the wheel back on?
Okay, so yeah,
It's
I
not
was
his fault.
hoping we would start talking about the wheel thing because we haven't touched that yet, you know. So let's bearing in mind. So just to summarize where we're at right now. So scattering seems to be, we have a consensus. It means breaking them apart so that they don't have strength of numbers. Okay. Winnowing, we haven't really talked about yet, other than saying that it is something he does to the entire population, and then that identifies the wicked, and then something drives them out. We haven't said what that means practically yet. And then the question now is, what's the relationship between that and the wheel turning back on them?
But how, I want to see how you can say, like, how you're like sifting out the bad deeds of a person, like how you do that, how does that work?
Right. That is a good question. And by the way, just one observation here. Like, again, I'm not, we'll see what Mrs. David says later on, but I think that the wheel has to point to the fact that you're winnowing. And the reason why, well, if anything, because if you're, it's very inefficient. If I said like, here's a bunch of I don't know, bubble wrap, okay, scatter it all over the place and then pop all of them with a wheel. That's not very efficient, is it? Because you're scattering it. You know, you want to get them all into one area and then crush them with a wheel. Now, winnowing, I understand, also is a problem because they're being blown away by the wind, you know? So like, I guess this is more of a question on the two halves, is that they don't seem to go together like pragmatically, like practically. Like if you're scattering or winnowing them, the Rishon are going to end up all over the place. And then what, you're going to hunt them down with a wheel and like crush them? Like what's the mushal? Yeah.
So I think the relationship might be that you're winnowing them, but identifies them, and then
Right.
you're going and then crushing them. with the
Yeah.
wheel.
So I think if you're going to take winnowing as only the separating the bad from the good, but not the scattering to the wind, then it works out to be able to crush them with a
Also,
wheel.
I think the important thing though is that it's not that they're the same. It's not
Yeah.
that winnowing is crushing them. It's that you winnow them so as to identify them, so as to then crush. them.
Yes, right. Oh, you know what I just realized, by the way, and this might be totally okay, total speculation. What do you do with the grain after you winnow
I
it?
was also saying that.
Yeah?
You have to use a mill. on
You
it.
use a
Maybe
millstone.
That you do to the good stuff, not the bad.
Right.
stuff.
That's true. That's a good
I don't
point.
know
Yeah.
if you
Yeah. And that undermines it in a stronger way than I was going to undermine it, because I was going to say, yeah, you crush it with a millstone. And is a millstone ever called an ophon? Probably not. I'm probably just stretching it. But then you're right, is you don't crush the bad stuff, you crush the good stuff. Yeah. Or you make really bad bread if you just make chaff bread. Yeah.
I guess it's taking the mashal like really far to it. But
Yeah.
with what we're saying, and also like how the wind, like you're not the one who's actually doing the separating process. Like you're kind of just like making, like you're kind of like putting it out there that there are these two separate things.
Yeah.
You're like, so in a way, also like if in a society, if you just can find a figure a way to expose like certain people, or like if you can expose certain people as being the bad people,
Yeah.
everyone else is gonna want them out.
Yeah.
Like, you're not gonna want like people are gonna be like coming robbing your house around in your neighborhood.
Oh, that's a good, okay. That's a really, really good example. So you see this with politicians, which is that if you expose something bad that they're doing, then oftentimes public opinion will be enough to like force them to resign, you know, in many cases, obviously not all cases, you know. So then the wise king creates the circumstances which will allow the Russia just to be separated from the group, and then the forces of whatever of the group will oust them or will like neutralize them. Yeah.
So is it possible when we say winnowing, when we're talking about the kind that doesn't blow one, not that's being blown away, that
Yeah.
would be the and sharing with your collective.
So-
and
so-
then returning the bill.
Well, the way that I'm understanding the way David's saying it, and I want to differentiate, I want to understand what you're saying also, but the way I understand it from David is, so in winnowing, you throw the mixture in the air, the good falls down and the bad is carried off by the wind. And in the Nimshal, the king basically takes his population, does something which allows the Rishayim to be identified, and then the wind is the group dynamics will result in like ousting them, you know. So you're say what you said again, just
And that it's the other way around, and that the kind that's being blown away by the wind,
Yeah.
being removed from the Rishayim would be the city.
so
And then you're gathering and you're dropping down below.
Yeah.
Rishayim, and that's where the wheel comes in.
so the only reason, so that does fit in better with a wheel thing.
Right. That's how I feel.
And that's the advantage of that. I'm hesitant to say that because winnowing always is done to obtain the good and to get rid of the bad.
Right.
And that's why I'm like, I feel like it would be contrary to the first mushal to do that, unless you're going to take a very creative approach.
Well, then why would it say he winnows the wicked instead of winnows the, well, it's a good.
I got to see, when you're doing it to grain, do you winnow the chaff or do you winnow the grain? I feel like you winnow the chaff. Yeah, right. Yeah. So yeah. Good attempt though. I think that was a good, that good attempt to unify the two mashalim. Yeah.
I
Or
think with it saying winnowing, it's emphasizing the fact that through winnowing, it's all just one mixture.
yeah.
And maybe that's the reason why it's tough, because it's saying that you can't just be like, oh, I'm gonna go destroy the wicked people because you're gonna end up hurting the other people because it's all
Right.
one mixture.
Yeah.
The reason why it's tough is because you're first separating and then crushing.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's like the teacher who punishes the whole class when someone cheated on the test or something like that. You know, like it's bad for the group dynamics. I had an example with the winnowing thing based on what W was saying. Oh yeah, another example of this is So my dad worked in a maximum security division, a maximum security prison that housed all the other people from all the maximum security wings of all the other prisons. So like really, really bad dudes, you know? So he, I think he said that what often happens is like child predators or like pedophiles and stuff, they get like targeted by all the other criminals in the prison. In others, like you could be a murderer, you could be a thief or whatever, but if you are someone who like abused children, all the other guys in the prison will like just go after you and like so I was using that as an example of the group dynamics don't always have to come from good motives. Like sometimes like, or let's say like same thing in like a gang or in the mafia, if someone is caught stealing from the mafia, then unless you're the Joker from Dark Knight, then the other people in the mafia are going to target him, not for good reasons, just for the fact that they don't want someone stealing from them. So I just wanted to extend that the group dynamics don't even have to be stemming from chachma or righteousness. Just let the group dynamics take over. Yeah.
And also another question I just want to add on
Yeah.
is like, why is it highlighting a king?
Yeah.
Why is the case a king?
Right.
Versus anything else?
So what would be a simple example, or sorry, so a simple answer to the question about why it's focusing on a king? Yeah, is that king has the greatest capability. You don't always have, let's say like, you don't always have the ability, like let's say you're an employee in a company. You might not have the ability to like create a situation where the Rishayim are exposed. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but the CEO definitely does, or in a school or something. So king has the greatest ability to do this. And king also has in many ways the greatest incentive to do this because he wants to maintain the stability of his own kingdom, either for his own motives or for the sake of the righteousness of the kingdom.
So basically anyone in a position of power that has the ability to protect.
Right.
Or whatever.
Yeah, it would apply to all, it would extend secondarily to all those people.
Fine. So can I give an approach?
Yeah.
The approach is that the king and anyone in leadership needs to do whatever is necessary to protect the kingdom, to protect the society and whatever.
Yeah.
Now if he gets a wind that there are Rishon banding together or there's like a threat or whatever, like he's gonna need there are two options. Either he could let them be.
Yeah.
In which case, they will band together and they will form an alliance and it could be destructive.
Yeah.
And furthermore, that already creates a certain precedent where other people can start recognizing them and start, banding up with them also. Like you have to, do something about that. And, and which brings me to the next option is what you need to do is you need to destroy their alliances or whatever it is and scatter them throughout wherever you're going to scatter them. I don't know. Personally, kill them. But anyway, you scatter them.
It doesn't tend to work out for the way that people view the king. Oh yeah, right. Crushing them.
A way you deal with them is you send them away, and I don't know. Maybe you give them an opportunity to tshuva or whatever it is. I don't know. But like the reality is, it'll just protect the society as a whole. And because they're in another location, it'll be much difficult for them to, do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, I think
people will recognize that too.
Right. So that's a good approach. And I think the thing that all of our approaches are lacking here is the muscle of the wheel. Like we haven't really figured that out yet. But you did bring up something that I want to just refute. It's my own havamina that makes it clear is that if you just had the first half of the pasuk, then we've been emphasizing scattering to be that they're not going to be as powerful. There is another type of thing where sometimes if you scatter Rishaim among good or normal people, then they do change because your environment can change your behavior. Maybe not Rishaim, but like people who who when they're among like-minded people, they will get strength in their evil. But when they're among, normal or good people, then they'll be neutralized. And the reason why this is only a havamina is because then the crushing them wouldn't apply,
Well, that's
or
not
turning the wheel
crushing.
on.
Well, the difference.
We don't have to say crushing. I forgot to say it's just turning the wheel upon them.
Whatever it is, turning the wheel upon them doesn't necessarily mean they have to be killed or destroyed. Whatever. It just means their agenda is being destroyed.
That is also true, right? It doesn't have to, yeah. Yashav Aleim Ofan, yeah. We really have to figure out what that means. Yeah, last thing for today, and then we'll
Just a note
take a
of
break.
wheel.
Yeah.
I have like this image of the millstone. Whatever is under the millstone.
Yeah.
Should be like oppressed and crushed.
Yeah.
So maybe they were showing when they work together, they're able to like oppress or have control or influence over other
Ah.
people. But now that they've been scattered, they've been under the millstone.
So that works out really well.
Holy and,
Works out really well for the Targum, the Hapeh, is creating a reversal, that they were the ones who were crushing others, and then now they're the ones who were crushed. All right, so let's think about the wheel thing, and then tomorrow we should do meforshim, and let's try to wrap it up tomorrow so that we can do new pasuk on Wednesday. Okay, and I'll try to look for examples, Ellie, in the Tanakh, see if any of the meforshim bring us to examples of this, because that would definitely help us to come up with the idea. All righty, see ya. Yeah.
Thank you.